Hello, everybody, and welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday. Appreciate everybody joining as always. Jim Coyle with you. Today, Keegan's in the producer's chair, taking over for John, the producer, as he is off for the next 2 days, I believe. But you're in good hands. Great list on tap today, as always. Bob Kravitz from The Athletic will join us. Kyle Nedrip from the Indy Star. And Tyler Harris, Hoosiers for Good. We'll talk to him and get an update on the NIL consortium for Indiana and what is going on with them. And all of that. Keegan, how's your day going?
It's going good. A little earlier than usual, but never going to complain. Get more out of my day. But as I said last week, I'm a Reds fan, so it's not really ever good. But I'm just fighting through it. I'm battling through it.
Well, welcome aboard, everybody. Brought to you, of course, by our good friends at Andy Moore Honda and the Wow Club. Make sure you go sign up. The Wow Club is a great place where you can get signed up for discounts and dining dollars sent directly to your phone. Wow Club members earn exclusive discounts, dining dollars to spend more and more sent directly to your mobile phone with the Wow Club app. So make sure you go sign up for that. Even for us, just do it for us. Looking forward to that. The weather is not looking nice. Probably a day to stay in and do some work today, as it is looking rainy out there. Not great baseball weather. Speaking of baseball, Phil Castellini, if you're a Reds fan like myself and Keegan, he kind of stepped in the bucket yesterday, I guess you'd say, telling Reds fans to stop complaining. What did he say, Keegan? Stop complaining or go someplace else?
He basically said, stop complaining. We're trying to win, and we keep on. He's claiming they're still investing in the team. But he said, stop complaining, and, basically there's nowhere else you're going to go, or where else are you going to go in a city where the college football team just made the college football playoff and the professional football team just made the Super Bowl. He's kind of talking above his own head, I guess you could say. And then he was asked about it about 2 hours after he was on that radio show, and he doubled down. Then they lost after coming back to tie it and blowing it in the ninth. And then he issued an apology. Yeah. So the Reds PR department is not off to a good start this season.
Yeah, Will Smith offered an apology late, too. How's that going for him?
Not good.
Not well. Not well. What else is going on out there in the world of sports? The Reds, man. What are you going to do? I mean, the Reds are the Reds. The Reds are the new Cubs.
Mm-hmm.
I've said it for a year.
They've won a World Series in the last 6 years. The Reds haven't won a playoff series since '90, I don't think. So.
And I don't see that ever changing. How's that ever going to change? They're a small market team who always gives away the candy in the candy store.
Yeah.
Normally they wait till the season's halfway done to crush the hope of the Cincinnati Reds fans, but this year they said, "Oh, to hell with it. Let's step on their heart right at the beginning of the season and trade all of our best players to start the season." That's a great formula.
Yeah. And then they try to get you excited by bringing up the top prospects. Like Hunter Green made his debut on Sunday, and Nick Lodolo is making his debut
today. They're top prospects from the Louisville Farm Club that sucks, sitting in last place in their deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not much fun. Rob Finney is down to Butler and
Cincinnati.
Mike
Roberts, Cincinnati.
I think that Thad Matta probably has the inside track there for a couple of reasons. Butler, I don't know. Yeah, well, Butler, if Cincinnati was in the Big 12 already, that would probably make a huge difference. Then they would be playing Oklahoma and Kansas. And,
I mean, if I'm Rob, I don't know if I want to.
don't want to play against those teams?
I mean, if I could go to the American and the toughest game be Houston and Memphis after how many years in the Big Ten going up against the Iowas, the Ohio States, the Purdues, if I'm going to use that 5th year and I can kind of get a little less competition and try to show what I can actually do. I mean, the Big East isn't that much better than the American, I don't think. But
let's see. What was I talking about? I forgot. I started
Rob.
looking at the cup. Oh, yeah. Well, and the Big East is inviting.
Mhm.
It's not the Big East of old, of course, but yeah, who knows? We'll see. I Butler's closer to home. I mean, it's not like Cincinnati is on the West Coast or something, or even the East Coast for that matter. But I don't know. I don't know what his relationship with Thad was like. I mean, he was only here for a year, but
I don't think we know what anyone's relationship with Thad was like throughout this last season.
That's a good question. That's a solid statement there. No one got to speak with Thad.
Yeah.
Which was crazy. But yeah. But congratulations to Rob Finney, wherever he goes. And I hope he has a good end to his career. And maybe gets another degree or something. It's what Miller Kopp's doing. He's going to leave Indiana with a very nice degree.
Yeah. I think Rob's in that never have to buy a beer in Bloomington territory. So.
Well, yeah, that's based on one shot, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's based on one shot even. Yeah, you should never have to buy a beer. You hit a shot like that, that's automatic.
Yeah.
I mean, it should be on principle.
Him and Watford.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. Well, you can't put that up there next to Watford's shot, but it's pretty big though.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, it's about timing for those shots. It's not the wins. It's the timing of those wins. It's the importance. The Watford shot came when Indiana had been down for so long, was coming back, and you're beating your biggest foe, number 1 ranked at home. Come on. National TV, Dick Vitale calling the game. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You went in, baby. I mean, that stuff set up for, those are lifetime moments there.
Yeah. And then the Purdue one, I mean, come with the losing streak. And then that was really the reintegration of fans being back in stadiums for Indiana, I think. Coming off of last season, everyone storming the court. It was awesome.
It was a great thing for Indiana basketball. Indiana basketball needed that badly. They needed the run that they had at the end of the season badly. Even though it didn't go anywhere very far, it doesn't matter. It was something. They had a nice little run in the Big Ten tournament. You got really good wins over 2 really good teams, one of which is projected to be the best team in the Big Ten next year by many, Michigan. And you vanquished streaks with both of those teams. They had lost 9 straight to Michigan when they beat them in the Big Ten tournament. People forget that. So they did a lot of things this year. They stopped a lot of bad stuff. And you can't start doing good things until you stop doing bad things. Seriously. And they stopped a lot of bad things this year. And that is the beginning of good things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean, it really is. You can't, that's a nice little saying that I just came up with, but it's true. I mean, you can't start doing good things until you stop doing bad things.
Speaking of Michigan, did you see Juwan Howard is linked to the Lakers opening?
Yeah, but I'm like, that was mentioned yesterday. I don't see it personally. But It's about brand. It's about selling. Maybe I don't know. Does he have the experience yet?
He interviewed
He's only
for
been
it
a
in
college.
2019. So
Yeah, but that doesn't make him the guy for the job.
yeah,
But I don't know. I mean, I NBA coaching is probably different than any other head coaching professional sport. You probably have, I don't know. Do you do less in that sport than baseball? I mean, because at least you're making moves with baseball, and yes, you're making moves sometimes with basketball, sending guys in and whatnot. But it just seems like there's not as much coaching in basketball, in pro basketball. I mean,
yeah, and you're not recruiting.
what are you going to tell LeBron James? What's Juwan Howard going to tell LeBron James? Seriously,
Yeah, but I mean,
LeBron, yeah, I need you to do this. What?
So are you
He's gonna
saying
say
that
what?
are you saying that as a reason for him not to go to the Lakers?
No.
Because Frank Vogel made twice what Howard did at Michigan this last season, and he didn't even make the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm just saying at least he had coaching experience.
Yeah.
You understood why they hired him. Well, hey man. It just seems like there's a lot of assistant guys that have been coaching for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it all of a sudden guys that have barely coached are looked at as these hot prospects? They haven't done anything. What's Juwan Howard done?
Yeah.
As a coach. I mean, hadn't done squat.
Teams, I think. But I think with those teams with Kevin Durant and LeBron James and those big names, it's more about just keeping the locker room intact and not making people mad. And I think Juwan Howard would be able to do that with the Lakers, unlike Frank Vogel did, because they were a train wreck all season. And then they just went after Frank Vogel's throat right after the season was over. Like that post-game press conference, it was bad.
Yeah, but why?
Before even telling them.
Which is ridiculous. I mean, Howard doesn't need the money, and he's talked about how important his Michigan job was. You saw 3/4 or however 3/5 of the Fab Five at the NCAA tournament game Michigan was playing in. So is he a Michigan guy or is he pro guy? I guess everybody wants to move up. You can't blame him for that if that's his ultimate goal. But staying at Michigan for 2 years, that'd be kind of a punch in the face, I think, to your alma mater.
Yeah. And the one thing I've learned about like what he said, does Howard really need the money? Where is his heart? I've learned in the last couple of years and watching sports and seeing free agency and trades and everything that word is binding until you see that dollar sign, that massive, massive dollar sign. And then you forget everything you said and you really don't care who you're going to offend by leaving or taking another position. So, but if he's going to catch his sons, but yeah.
Yeah, Michelle and Brian both talking about his sons going to Michigan next year. That makes a difference. Are they playing?
Not sure.
And this is a good point, actually. For who would want to go to the Lakers? Who would actually want to go coach LeBron James? That's funny to say. I know it sounds stupid when it comes out because you're like, well, who wouldn't? Who would?
Yeah.
I mean, I just because it seems like he's in charge wherever you go.
Yeah, he has a son on the team right now, Jace Howard. And then Jet Howard, his other son, just committed to Michigan, 2022 shooting guard. He's a 4-star at IMG Academy. So, yeah, he's pretty good, I'd say.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine he's going anywhere.
Yep.
Well, we got to take a break. First one of the day. Bob Kravitz comes up. Can't wait. All excited. We got you here. That makes it all great. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Wild Club. Make sure you go to your app store and sign up. Wild Club members earn exclusive discounts, dining dollars to spend, and more sent directly to your mobile phone. MyWowNetwork.com is where you find that. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good.
Hello, sir. How are you feeling?
Pretty good. Getting ready for the old surgery on Monday. So hopefully I'll be 100% shortly thereafter. I can't see without my glasses. Who's the other gentleman in the box here?
Oh, that's Keegan is with us today.
Keegan. Hey, Keegan. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Filling in as producer today.
Oh, you're filling in. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were
Keegan's one of our
special guest star.
No.
Keegan's one of our writers actually on the Hoosier.com.
I've seen your stuff. That's why the name sounded familiar.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
He didn't say it was good. He just said he saw it.
He just did. He just said it was good.
No, it's good. I read I read a couple of young guys. Yourself, Tyler
Tochman.
Tackman. He's good. I think he's got a real future.
He is very talented.
And Matt Cohen, who I think is with the Star now, right? As an intern.
Yeah,
or
intern.
something?
Yeah.
I think he's going to somewhere in Baltimore.
Yes, Baltimore Sun, I believe.
Yeah,
good for him. That's how I came up. Just doing internships during college. I basically slept my way to the top. You know how it goes.
That's hey baby, that's how it was back in the day. I did too, but mine was on floors. I slept my way to the top too. But it was mostly sleeping on floors.
Oh, okay. I thought you were doing it on floors. I'm like,
no, sleeping on floors.
Okay, you nasty man.
We're a minute out.
I should have went and got some coffee.
I'll keep you awake with my.
Oh, there's no doubt about that, baby. I've been looking forward to it all week.
Oh, I'm sure you have. It better not fucking rain today, because this is the last day I can play golf for about a month and a half. So it better not goddamn rain.
Well, if I were you, then as soon as this segment is over, I would grab my clubs and go.
Well, I'm playing at noon in a men's club, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Where are you playing?
Prairie View, the usual.
Oh yeah.
20 out.
I actually played like 7 holes yesterday.
Did you? Good for you. Yeah, I wanted to, but I just couldn't make the time. And I'm actually getting some work done so that when I come back, I don't have to. I'll have some stuff ready to roll.
Back in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you on this Wednesday, joined now by our good friend Bob Kravitz from The Athletic, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda and Feast Market and Cellar. Make sure you get out and visit those fine folks. Bob Kravitz, how are you, sir?
I am doing fine, sir. How are you?
Cannot complain. Nobody wants to listen to it. I did get out and play a few holes of golf yesterday, late in the day, and then I went to the driving range and just hit a small bucket. First time this year, really. And then I walked inside and I noticed my left index finger was just hurting like heck. And I looked down and it was just swollen as hell. And I'm like, what did I just do?
You're getting
no
old,
idea.
Exactly. Welcome.
Exactly. Just
Stuff
I think
that
from
starts
swinging, I did something and it was all swollen. I was like, gee whiz. It is old age,
a guy
man.
with your swing, I would think, nothing bad could possibly happen with your swing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sweetness, baby. It's sweet.
It's poetry in motion.
Exactly. Yeah. Mike says you might be playing at noon, but you probably won't be finishing that round. We'll see. Hopefully you get storms and 75 miles an hour winds predicted this evening. What the hell is that?
Well, I'm not playing tonight, so I don't give a crap.
Man, I didn't know that was on the way in.
They're expecting some real major windstorms and rain tonight. So, but can't hurt you in a bar.
There you go, especially if you're one downstairs.
Yeah, exactly.
What else is going on with Bob Kravitz?
Well, not a hell of a lot. Just taking a lot of time off for medical stuff. But I'm starting to. You and I had talked about that story. What the hell has happened to Indiana basketball? And I reached out to about 5-6 guys, and I'm putting that together for when I come back. And of course, the NBA draft lottery. I'm going to work on a story on the horrible lack of success that the Pacers have had throughout history at the top of the draft. You look at guys they've taken. I happen to have it right in front of me. Rick Roby was the 3rd pick in '78 when they could have gone
Roby
after
from
Bird.
Kentucky.
From Kentucky was the 3rd pick, and that was the year that the Celtics selected Larry Bird and were willing to wait a full year for Bird to,
I don't think
graduate.
people today remember that very well, that he was drafted a full year before
Right.
he played.
Right.
The Celtics waited a year for him.
The Celtics waited a year, and, there was the question that whether Bird would sign with Indiana. You would think, being an Indiana kid, he probably would have, but at the time, Slick Leonard, our great friend, he was the GM, and he decided that the team just didn't have any money. They were working on a shoestring budget, excuse me, for all those years. And he decided that he couldn't risk losing, because they had the 1st pick in the draft, and they traded it and got with Portland, and they got the 3rd pick in the draft. And guess who went 6th? Larry freaking Bird. But you look at it, 83, they took Stepanovic, who was terrible. 85 was the Patrick Ewing year. They ended up with Wayman Tisdale, who had a nice career, a very good career, but certainly not Patrick Ewing. 88, Rick Smith, who had a decent career, but not a superstar, not what you'd hope it to. And then the last time they had a single-digit draft choice was George McLeod at 7 in 1989, and he didn't amount to much of anything. And of course, in 1999, it wasn't their pick, but they traded with Toronto and got the 5th pick, and that was Jonathan Bender, who was he was Kevin Durant before Kevin Durant, but he couldn't stay healthy. So, yeah, the Pacers have not had much luck at the top of the draft, and I'm going to write about that. So that's a very long answer to a simple question.
Can you imagine the difference Larry Bird would have made at IU and for the Pacers?
Oh,
had he stayed in Indiana instead of leaving, he would have been here in 77 and 78. He would have been here in 77 with Kent Benson. Those two would have still been together.
They hated each other.
And then with the Pacers, that would have turned out.
Right.
But
right.
Just the oddity of how, not that Indiana needed him, but it could have.
They could have had several undefeated seasons. And then you think about it, if Bird had come here in, say, 70, 78, 79, then you look at, they probably wouldn't have been a lottery team. But assuming if you guess that they were in 85, then you add Patrick Ewing quite possibly. But, that's really not here nor there, because I don't think a team with Larry Bird is ever going to be in a position to draft that high, in the annual grab bag. So, they've had a couple of shots at this, and they have had very, very bad luck in the lottery, and even pre-lottery, like 78 and 83 with Roby and Stipo.
Yeah, not successful there, unfortunately. But they always played just well enough a lot of the times too that they don't get a great draft picks very often. They're always kind of in the middle of the road all the time.
Yeah,
Always in the middle of the road.
That's always been one of my criticisms of Herb Simon is that Herb never wants to go through the pain of a full rebuild. Well, he's going through it now. I think he found out he has no choice, but because they tanked without really trying to tank. But I mean, they've had incredible success picking, double-digit picks. I mean, Danny Granger and Paul George was a 10, I believe, and Miles Turner was, a double-digit pick, and they've done really well. Roy Hibbert is another guy they got through a deal, picking a little later in the first round. But yeah, the last time they had a single-digit pick. And I don't include Bender in that because he was part of the trade, but it was George McLeod in 1989. So we're talking about 33 years since the Indiana Pacers have had a single-digit draft choice, and they better freaking get it right, or this team is going to be bad for a long time.
What do they need?
Everything. Everything, Jim. I mean, look, they could use another wing. They could use a good, solid forward because Warren ain't coming back. If they keep Miles, I don't think they need another big. They've got Goga, they got Miles, they got Isaiah Jackson. So I think they're out of the big business. But they either need a wing or a good, solid, power forward, something like that. But this is a team, when you go 25 and 57, you need just about everything at every position.
Yeah, former coach Frank Vogel just fired by the Lakers. In the segment before, I was talking to Keegan, and I said, "Who the hell would want to go out there and coach LeBron James?"
Right.
You're going in there with your hand on your back as to start.
You are, but if you are a guy, look, Frank Vogel didn't have the championship pedigree when he walked in there. Obviously, they won one in the bubble, which was amazing. But I think if they could get a Quinn Snyder or a Doc Rivers or somebody who's got some gravitas, I think that would change the equation just a little bit. But bless you. But generally speaking, it's if you don't have that gravitas, LeBron's going to run the show. And even if you do, LeBron's probably going to run the show. And it was a mess. I feel so bad for Frank, but you know what? Frank probably is in a better position to get another job than he would have been otherwise, because everybody knows what the situation is. There's no mystery here. He got undermined not only by LeBron, but just, by Pelinka. And the way that it happened, I mean, he found out by reading it, on a Woj bomb instead of being told directly by Pelinka and Jeannie Buss, which is another sign of their complete and abject ineptitude.
Yeah, and
you gonna be okay there, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Checking, man.
I'm always happy when you're here. You're my inspiration, man.
I'm the wind under your wings.
The Pacers just can't get over that hump. They got close with Reggie Miller and when Bird was here actually, but man, they just can't get there. And is it too small of a market?
Well, look, they're always going to have challenges that you don't have in Chicago and New York and other places. But you look at Memphis, they're a small market. Milwaukee, yeah, they got incredibly lucky with Giannis, but it's doable. It's doable, but you do have limitations financially. You can't build through free agency. You have to build primarily through the draft, which they haven't been in a position to draft real high over the years. And you have to do it through really, really good creative trades. And look, I give Donnie Walsh and Larry Bird a ton of credit because they were able to keep this team competitive and playing in the playoffs and even reaching the Eastern Conference Finals a couple of times against LeBron and the Heat without really tearing it down. And I think that that's what Herb felt they could continue to do. But I think that's not sustainable. And, after all those years of rebuilding on the run and doing quite a good job of it, I think they've come to understand and they've been forced to understand that sometimes you got to go to rock bottom before you start to build back up.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's too many visits to rock bottom. It seems like for the teams.
Well, the last 2 years, been brutal, but it's the question is whether you trust Kevin Pritchard moving forward. Look, Kevin rebuilt the Portland Trail Blazers many years ago, so I think if he's still the guy, I have some faith in him, even though his drafts have not been very good. He's been picking 22nd, and 18th and stuff the last couple of years. But, you got a top 5, top 7 pick. It's hard to screw that up.
You're right. You're preparing to write a piece on Indiana basketball. NIL, how is that going to change in Indiana basketball? I think it's going to be – it's going to help Indiana get back to being Indiana, I think, quicker than they've been able to do so on their own.
Right. Well, look, everybody's got an NIL deal coming. I saw that Purdue's got a group that's going to help its athletes. But certainly, just looking at it in the short term, if you're Trace Jackson Davis, now that if you don't get the answers that you want from the NBA, you can go back to Indiana and make a pretty good penny. And, I don't think that option was there pre-NIL. I think he would have gone professional, whether it's overseas or G League or NBA or wherever. I think if Indiana does this NIL thing right, it's got so much else going for it, with the facilities and everything else and the history, although the history isn't that important to young kids. I think Indiana could really clean up in the NIL era if they have the right sort of infrastructure, which it sounds like they do. I know you're talking to Trey Harris? Is that his name?
Tyler Harris.
Yeah, I got an email from his people the other day as well. And if they do it right, yeah, they could definitely benefit from the new realities of college basketball.
Well, and it's Indiana's a team or a program that shouldn't have needed that. They should have been able to get back on track, but they haven't been able to for whatever reasons, myriad of reasons. But this, to me, is just going to be the thing that kind of supersedes that and allows them to jump over their past mistakes. And now it's just going to be managing the rosters. That's going to be roster management is going to be the biggest thing, I think, going forward for coaches. Is just who's staying, who's going.
It's going to be the wild
coming
west.
in.
It's going to be the wild west for a couple of years. I think at some point it's going to calm down. I think a lot of players. I don't have the stat in front of me, but I read it the other day. But a lot of players who are in the portal end up nowhere. A lot of players in the portal end up not finding a home. So I think it's like anything else in economics or whatever, that water finds its level. It will calm down. I'm quite sure. And I understand why coaches hate this, because they, if you coach a kid too hard and you look at him the wrong way, he's like, I'm getting the hell out of here, and I'm going someplace else where they love me. I want to be re-recruited. I want to hear again how wonderful I am. And yeah, it's not good, but at the same time, if coaches can up and leave in the middle of a 12-year contract, then by God, the players ought to be able to have the same opportunity.
The NIL deals, should they be made public?
Yeah. Why
I think so.
They? Yeah, I don't see why they shouldn't be. Yeah. Is there a talk of keeping it private? I'm not aware.
Well, they're not. They are private. They're not
Okay.
public unless someone talks about them. There's nothing that requires anybody to disclose other than their taxes. And we don't know what someone's taxes are, but there's nothing that forces anyone to disclose anything. That's the one thing I think that they should be public. That people are saying, well, that's going to cause dissension within your team. Bull crap. It's life, man. Do you think everybody makes the same money where you work? No. There are people that make more money than you.
Of course. Yeah. Look, if I remember talking to Ryan Kelly, the center for the Colts, and he was saying he thought that the whole NIL thing was going to be a disaster. I don't completely agree with him, but it will cause some problems internally. If you've got your quarterback making $1 million and your running back making $200, yeah, it's going to be an issue. But you know what? Grow the hell up. That's the way the real world works.
That's my point.
You get paid for your value and what you bring to the table. And if somebody determines that I'm a $1 million writer, then by God, I'm a $1 million writer.
Exactly.
Which I clearly am not, but I'm just using that as an example.
Well, you are for us, as always. But yeah, just like when if you're selling a car, people can tell you what the worth is. It's worth what you can get for it.
Exactly.
That's
right.
its worth.
That's exactly
it's
right.
worth what you can get for it, and no more, no less. Period.
Agreed.
All right, brother. I hope you. I'm gonna let you go so you can sneak out. You may have to get out there early today.
I may have to.
Course. Get out there. I hope that. Wishing for long, straight balls today. Hope your balls are long and straight.
I don't even know how to respond to that. I don't. That doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't, but I'll have to come up with something funnier.
No, that was funny just because it's so weird.
That's me, baby. Weird.
Yeah. All right, buddy.
Bob, I hope you have a great one, buddy. Appreciate you so much.
Be well. Talk to you soon.
The great Bob Kravitz from The Athletic. Make sure you give him a follow and read all of his great content at The Athletic. Be a subscriber. I am. Brought to you, of course, by our good friends at Andy Moore Honda and Feast Market and Cellar. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat. Kyle Nedrip from the Star after this. What are you eating?
Vitamins. Stuff will kill ya.
Coffee.
30 out. Mr. Neddenriep, how we doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Oh, hello, Kyle. How are you, sir?
How's it going?
It's looks like it's going to rain.
It's raining here.
All right. We're
Oh,
back in
already?
5, 4, 3.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Wednesday. We've made it halfway through the week. Hope you're having a good one. Glad to have you along with us. Kyle Nedrip from the Indianapolis Star joins us now. Man, I have not said Indianapolis Star in forever. I don't think I've not said Indy Star in years. Kyle Nedrip joins us from the Indy Star. How are you, sir?
Good, Jim. How are you?
Cannot complain, even though the season's or the big part of the season's over. It doesn't stop, man. I saw that the IHSA has made their changes. Their, I guess it's annual changes for classes and whatnot. So but not a lot of teams got moved this year.
Yeah, it's a every 2 years. It was kind of thrown into flux a little bit because of the COVID year, and they bumped everything back 1 year, and they actually thought about bumping them back even another year, but decided to go ahead and do it this year. That's for the upcoming 2 years, and Cathedral moving to 6A in football. That was probably the biggest change. They're moving up because of the success factor, not because of enrollment, but there were some enrollment changes. Really football, I thought was probably the biggest, because of the 6 classes, you have more schools maybe moving around than you do in the 4-class sports. So there'll be a few changes for the next 2 years, and that they haven't put out the sectional alignments yet. That'll be coming in May. So, the sort of the newsiness of it is it's interesting who's moving classes, but you don't know yet who's in your sectional. So that'll still be to come. And, I think I'm going to try to map out a little bit on what they might do, and especially in football, like in 6A, and see what that might look like. There's a lot of local interest, obviously, with Cathedral moving to 6A and where they would kind of slot into, into the field there. So not only them, but, other 6A teams around here too. So, that's kind of the most interesting thing, I would say. And, you did have a few changes in other sports as well. But to me, I thought football, New Pal moving back down to 4A, that's where they fit in enrollment wise anyway. They've been playing up because of their success they've had. They're moving back down.
And it showed. They've not had the success since they moved up. I don't know if that's because of the teams that they've had, but they have not had the success since they moved up. I mean, they've been good, don't get me wrong, but it definitely had an impact on them.
Yeah, well, they had success, and then, Charlie Spiegel and those guys graduated, and then they kind of, they didn't, I wouldn't say they dropped off the map, but they didn't have the tournament success they'd had with those guys. And they kind of knew that was coming, that level of staying on top was going to be difficult. I mean, it's funny. They're not, you look at their enrollment, they're not even close to being, with some of those 5A and 6A teams, and they were beating those guys. They beat Center Grove, for crying out loud. I mean, they were really good there for a stretch, and then they've kind of come back to earth a little bit. Now, Mount Vernon, who's right there next to them and in the same conference, they've become a real power in 4A. So you put them and New Pal back in 4A together, and you've got Roncalli in 4A. You've got Brebeuf moving up to 4A. Football is going to be really good. It already was. It's going to be even better next year or the next couple of years. So that was interesting too. And then some of the other things are still, I know they've talked about enrollment caps and, maybe changing the way classes are structured in the 4-class alignments. But, that's not something that will happen for the next 2-year span. I think that's something that will continue to be studied, and, maybe a real proposal will come about here in the next year or so.
What's the biggest change that's come about for NIHSA in the last year or two, do you think? Whether it's a rule change or anything.
The enrollment cap would be, and that's something that I think has some real legs to it. I would say.
And how would that work?
So, basically, it would be you would put instead of like they do now in take basketball for example, the sport probably majority of people follow. They split the classes evenly. You have basically roughly 100 teams in each class. As it stands right now, each of the 4 classes. What this would do basically is say, all right, everybody from 2,000 students and above is in class 4A. So you may have, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but you would say you have 35 teams or 35 schools that have 2,000 students. Those 35 teams would make up the class 4A in basketball. Then the next group would be, whatever it would be. I think it's, I forget what they talked about, 1,000 to 2,000 would be class 3A. 500 to 1,000 would be 2A. And I'm just kind of guessing what the numbers would be here, but, you'd basically put, instead of having, say, 100 teams in each class, you would go by that instead. And what that does is kind of takes, what we've seen in recent years is a lot of the charter schools that have come into IHSAA are smaller schools, or private schools have joined the IHSAA that are smaller schools, and that's kind of bumped up the middle class to say the Speedways or the Western Boons and people like that who are public schools, and their enrollment stays relatively stagnant, but they're bumping up in class because they're being pushed up from the bottom. So that would sort of eliminate that somewhat, and it would keep teams in the same class. Right now you may have, I think Cascade is in this boat where I can't remember if they're girls or boys. One or the other is going to be 3A, and the other team is going to be 2A. So it would eliminate that too. You'd stay in the same class in whatever your sport is. So you wouldn't have to be bouncing between, depending on the alignment of the sport, you're in different classes. So, I sort of like that idea, and really what the proposal, was going to be or will be maybe from the Athletic Directors Association was to make it 5 classes actually. So you'd have 5 classes instead of 4. I think what the IHSA would rather do, and some people would rather do, is keep it 4 classes, but also have this enrollment cap that has been talked about by the Athletic Directors Association. So I think that's something we could see possibly come. I think that would actually, it would look a little bit more like football, where you have, football's already, not that they're going by enrollment caps, but they've sort of made it that way because they only have 32 teams in 6A, which kind of creates that super class. You'd basically be doing that for, basketball, soccer, softball, baseball, the sports that have 4 classes right now. So, and I understand where that's coming from. It makes some sense to me because you have, it used to be in football, you'd have the Decatur Centrals playing Ben Davis. Those schools are not even remotely close in enrollment, but they were in the same sectional together. Now you see Decatur in that 5A, they're really, really having success in 5A because they're more aligned as a public school with some of the schools they compete against enrollment wise. In football, numbers really matter a lot. The number of students you have available in your school. I would say to a lesser extent, maybe basketball, where you're talking about a fewer number of kids, playing on the team. But at any rate, I think it would kind of, as these, and I think there's probably a deeper story to be done or study to be done, but so many of these suburban schools are just enormous now that, it almost should create its own class of schools that these mega schools have become so huge that it kind of, I think some of the towns that compete against them that are not growing at the same rate, you're kind of playing a different ball game against each other. So I think it's interesting. I think there's probably more study to be done on what it looks like exactly, but I sort of, I'm not taking one side or the other, but I am intrigued by the idea of doing it this way.
Yeah, I think that it would just make things a lot easier. And better.
I think really fairness, really what you're
Yeah.
looking at, with all of this is fairness, and it's almost impossible to make everything fair. I know people joke like, well, you need a class for each school, so, because at what point do you just have, but this, I think if you do it this way, you're not creating more classes necessarily. If you keep it 4 classes, you're not obviously creating more classes, but you're creating more of an equal footing, I think. And, that seems right to me. I don't know, I haven't, like I said, I haven't completely studied all of it, but it does make sense to me. And I think, for some of the towns that are staying the same enrollment and you're getting bumped up, that, just because of the number of schools coming in, it's nothing against those schools coming in either. I mean, they're trying to create opportunities for their kids, and starting a school, is it's whatever, but it's creating an issue for some of these schools that are getting bumped up really for no reason. They're not growing in size. They're just kind of becoming they're becoming going into a bigger class just because they're getting bumped up by other schools. So that doesn't really seem right to me either.
Floyd Central losing Todd Sturgeon as their coach at I don't know how long he'd been there, 5 or 6 years, but I went to Floyd Central. So back when I was in school, it was they were a dominant program in basketball. And then after Joe Hinton was fired, it was kind of like the Bob Knight thing. It was very, very similar to the Indiana deal. They were just been in the wilderness basically until Todd Sturgeon came along, and they have had great success under him. And now he's stepping away. I don't know any more than that. He could just be deciding to move on, or I don't know what the deal is. But regardless of that, how good of a job is that now that Sturgeon has made that again?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to, I kind of heard secondhand that, he's got some, some family, his parents and stuff. He just needs to take care of some things there. And certainly he's definitely considered one of the best coaches around. I think if you talk to his, colleagues in the business, and look at his record, just alone, I mean, he's obviously done a great job there at Floyd Central. So, sad to see him leave, but you got to do what you got to do for your family for sure. So, I think they're in a really, interesting situation there, because they have some talent coming back, and, they've been a successful program. Like you said, I think he's actually been there 8 or 9 years now.
Is it that long?
Yeah, I think that's right. I would have to look at that for sure, but I think it was 9 years, and they won. I think this past year was probably a little disappointing. They could have gone a little bit farther in the tournament. They had kind of an opportunity there to do that and weren't able to, but they were a 20-win team, and they won a sectional title. And I don't think he's had a losing season since he's coached there. And I don't think it's really been even close. So obviously there's a good talent in the system. And, I know Providence coach there, Coach Miller, he head coach there as an assistant. So I know he went to Providence though, so that may keep him there, but it kind of makes you wonder if maybe that's a potential possibility. And I'm sure Floyd Central will be interested. He did a great job with that Providence team not only this year, but in recent years. So I think that could be something to maybe think about, but yeah, I mean, that's been a really good program, and I think will continue to be, good facilities. They got good players still coming back next year, and I think that'll be something to possibly keep an eye on there.
Yeah. Also on that Providence staff is Lance Stemler, former Indiana player, Lance Stemler on that staff. So that would be that would be very interesting to see them move over to Floyd Central. I mean, Providence is a small Catholic school down there, great school, but Floyd Central is just one of the bigger schools, and it gives you an opportunity to play bigger. But like you said, he the coach of Providence, he went there, so I want to see how that goes. But it's always interesting to see how that stuff works out.
I know his name has come up. I mean, I don't think that's a secret by any means. And I think rightly so. I thought, he did a great job this year. And in that state championship game, they were definitely ready to play. And he's an engaging type of person. I think I mentioned either on your show or another one, but he was, I think he would have, in the post-game press conference, he would have probably talk for 2 hours if he could have, but just a really good coach, I think, and a young guy. And I think, you'd be kind of silly not to consider him if you're Floyd Central, or at least gauge his interest in that job.
Yeah, and I forgot, coming off of a surprising state championship run. That just kind of shocked the hell out of me.
Yeah. I mean, they did a great job, and they played that Connor Sejan in the state title game and did a great job on him. And he'll go on, I think, and have a really good career at Wisconsin. So you'll probably look back at that game and be like, man, that was they did a phenomenal job beating that team. And I really thought Central Noble was the favorite going in. But again, it's hard to gauge the teams. That's far north part of the state against far south, and it's different, different teams you played all year. And then you're talking about a 1-game scenario in that state championship game, and, anything can happen, as they say. So, but again, that Providence team was definitely ready to play.
We got to take a break. Kyle, I can't thank you enough as always. Look forward to next week talking about, I know the All-Star team has been named and all that stuff's coming out and who's going where. And so plenty to keep on talking about. Your job never ends, man.
Yeah, no problem, Jim. Appreciate you having me on.
You bet. Kyle Nedrip from the Indy Star joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We've got plenty more coming up. Joining us next, Tyler Harris, the executive director of the Hoosiers for Good NIL Consortium for Indiana. Back with more after this, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda Bloomington and the Wow Club.
Jim, how are you?
Good, Tyler. How you doing, man?
Hanging in there. It's been a very busy month.
Yeah?
So it's been good, though. It's been good.
Looks like it. So do you guys and I'll ask this when we get on there, but have you guys signed any more than your initial class, or is that like what you're doing and it stays there?
So it's really twofold.
I don't want to get too deep into it, like I said, because I'll ask that when we come back, but I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we'll have another class at some point in the fall.
Okay.
And so the goal is to have about 2 classes every year. So
cool. And you have this is not even your real. Is this not your full-time job?
It is now.
It is, okay.
Yeah, I was the head of compliance at IU before this, and then Fred and Pete convinced me to come on board, and it's been good.
Did you go to IU?
I didn't. I went to a Division II school right outside St. Louis. It's called Lindenwood.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I played basketball there, and then from there went to work at the NCAA for a little bit, and then Iowa State, and then was at Indiana for about 4 years.
Did you say you played baseball?
Basketball.
Basketball. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I had a assistant coach at my junior college that I played at that played baseball at Lindenwood.
Okay.
So you don't hear Lindenwood every day.
Well, no. So when you smiled, I'm like, well, obviously he knows Lindenwood. Who the hell's ever heard of that place? So I was waiting to hear that story.
Yeah, they're moving to the Ohio Valley Conference.
Are they? Okay.
And
wow, they're Division I now?
They will be. It's a 4-year process. And I believe it's the Ohio Valley. I think it's the same one as Bellarmine in Southern Indiana.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just talking to Scott Davenport
30 out
last Sunday about that stupid rule.
I don't get it. I really feel bad. It really shined a light on how poor that rule is when Bellarmine won, and then can't do anything with that. So it's unfortunate. It's not student athlete friendly.
Yeah, definitely not. 10 out. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you on this Wednesday. We've made it to Hump Day. Joined now by Tyler Harris for Hoosiers for Good, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda Bloomington and the Wow Club. Make sure you go there, sign up, and get your Wow Club dining dollars and discounts sent directly to your mobile app on your phone. Tyler Harris joins us now from Hoosiers for Good. How are you doing, man?
Doing well. It's a little bit less crazy this week than it was last week. But yeah, it's doing well. I appreciate you having me, Jim.
Yeah, great to have you on, Tyler. You're the executive director. And in the break, I was asking, this started out as it's a lot of people volunteering their time, but this is becoming an entity. So this is your full-time job now.
Yeah. We're a nonprofit. So we have a board of directors. Pete Yonkman is the president. Calvert Cheney's the vice president of the board. Wes Jones is our treasurer. And Allison Jordan is our secretary. And then we have a few more board members. And then Fred Glass is our legal counsel. And then, I'm the sole employee of Hoosiers for Good. Started March 7th. So it's been a little busy since March 7th, but it's going well.
I doubt that very few NIL consortia, whatever they are called, around the country. I mean, there's not a ton of them yet. I mean, there are the smarter schools are getting, like Indiana, are getting out in front of this, but even those that are, I don't know how many that are where Indiana is. I mean, you've got someone like yourself who is a former head of compliance, who is a former college basketball player. You worked for the NCAA. They've got a former athletics director on there, and a former All-American. I mean, they've got a little bit of everything on there. It just seems like, I have to say, Indiana's done a lot of things wrong in sports over the last several years. And that's why they are in a lot of places. But this doesn't seem to be one of them. They seem to be doing this pretty right.
I can't take credit for it, but it was certainly well thought out. Pete put a lot of time and effort into thinking through this with Fred as well. So yeah, I think it's very well thought out. And we made our initial announcement on March 8th. And that's when we announced, we're gonna engage in this endeavor, but it's gonna be a charitable focus. And I think since then I've seen probably 3 more collectives, trusts, whatever you want to call them, come out with a charitable focus. And so this model will continue to evolve. But I like to think we're at the top of the list in terms of helping craft the evolution of how this should be done, right? The Hoosier way, and where everybody really wins.
Yeah, and this is Indiana is a program that should always be up there, but they haven't been for a while. And I said earlier on the show that this is something that I think will help it get Indiana back there quicker. They should already have been there, but they're not. But it just seems like this is helping them in a lot of areas. I don't know about other sports, but as far as men's basketball, it's definitely going to pay great dividends. And I know you all don't, that's not your view, how you look at it, but it is how fans look at it.
Yeah, we're certainly broad-based. We want this endeavor to benefit all student athletes, but at the same time, it's not one size fits all. And while we're not in the recruiting space, certainly kids in high school see that there's opportunities here, and for us, I think frankly, it's not only is it the opportunity to become a Hoosiers for Good athlete. Another added benefit is you're building your brand in a charitable way. And that's super important, because there's a lot of ways to hurt your brand this day and age. I can promise you charitable participation is not one of them.
No. And you guys announced your inaugural class that you called it last week. And I asked in the break, is that going to be, are you going to add them as you go, or you're just going to come out with classes?
Yeah, I think the idea is to have 2 classes a year. And in our initial class, it was 14 student athletes. And I think the number will end up being right around 30, each year. And then, another aspect of what we're doing, which to my knowledge, no one across the country does, but really just demonstrates our values is we have a charitable incubator program that's really going to involve any student athlete who doesn't yet have a platform or a voice to submit a proposal about a charity that they're passionate about, and we'll help help amplify through that student athlete's voice the charitable awareness.
And the charities, I'm sure that they're just over the moon with this, because this is great for them, and it is tremendous, and it's great for the athletes. It gives them a taste, if they haven't done that or not doing that, a taste of doing that and what that's like, and giving back. And I know that's obviously an important thing for you guys, and it ties it all together. But how do you select the charities, and how do you select the athletes?
No, that's a good question. 5 charities had already partnered, with us before I came on board, and as you can imagine, through that time since our initial announcement, and with the first class, more charitable organizations have reached out, and I don't envision we'll ever get to a point where we're not wanting to partner with a charity. The more the better, and really, a lot of the charities now that we've since partnered with, they don't have a lot of resources, and this endeavor will hopefully raise awareness for those charitable organizations, because there's a model for charitable organizations that if you have resources, you're going to be able to do well and make people aware of your mission and the clients you serve, and hopefully this model will help those charitable organizations that don't have a voice out there yet, or people don't know about them. In terms of the student athletes, thankfully, my previous role as the head of compliance, I got to talk to a lot of student athletes, and I know them personally, and so with that, I was able to quickly see which student athletes had a passion and an ambition to really raise awareness for charities, right, and using their NIL in that way. And so, a lot of it is behind the scenes, where I'll talk to student athletes on the phone. I'll talk to them in person, make sure that they're a good partner with us, and that they really care about adding value. And so this first class, broad based, and every single student athlete was very excited to be able to be a part of this.
And are there clauses in there that hey, you've got to not get in trouble, not do things like that? Not that they need it. I'm just saying, are those included? I would think that if they're involved in something, especially like this, that you're tied into charity work and all that, you definitely want people who are not getting in trouble. That doesn't happen a lot, but obviously we see it from time to time. Is that part of this where you're saying, hey guys, you got to keep your nose clean? Yeah,
that's certainly within the agreement. There's termination with cause, termination without cause. All those standard agreement language is in there, as well as all the deliverables that are required of them. And I can't take credit for that, right? I'm not a lawyer, but Fred, I thought, did a really good job drafting that to be aware and to be able to move if we needed to, if something did happen.
And then we've talked about this, probably going to happen twice a year. With that being the proposed model, and nothing's written in stone, I know, but with recruits, like say men's basketball, how are they going to be able to involve themselves into a guy that's not here yet, that they're trying to recruit?
Yeah, I'm not sure how IU will use this endeavor. But I know for us specifically, we'll focus on student athletes that are already enrolled at IU. Okay. And that second class could be newcomers. It could be guys that have been there for a while. Really, it really boils down to, we're only interested in selecting student athletes who really care about this, want to do things positive, but also have a platform to raise awareness.
And then what are some of the charities that you guys are working with?
Yeah, so right now we have 8 charitable partners, and throughout these next couple of weeks, that list will grow. But it's Riley Children's Foundation, Indiana Wish, Habitat for Humanity, Indiana Region of the American Red Cross, Turnstone, Stop the Violence Indianapolis, Boys and Girls Club of Bloomington, and Recycle Force are the 8 right now.
And obviously, we saw the inaugural class. Most of the names, if you're an Indiana fan, at least you know virtually all those names. Some of them you may not because they're smaller sports, but at least the bigger sports: soccer, baseball, basketball, women's basketball, football. A lot of names that we expected to see on there. What are they expected to do now this summer? I mean, obviously, you have a relationship set up with these charities. Is it incumbent upon them to do that? Do you guys continue to manage for them? How does that work?
I'll be there every step of the way. And so the student athletes have a certain number of required in-person appearances that they're going to have to do at their charitable partner. And that can be at any point. We felt it was important not to put specific dates. It's not fair for a student athlete to know what they're going to be doing on September 11th. So in terms of the deliverables within the agreement, we've got a certain number of in-person appearances that would be required at their charitable partner, encompass autograph sessions and presentation of skills, or the like. And then a required number of social media posts to raise awareness via social media for those charities they're partnering with.
What's the most important thing that the fans need to know about Hoosiers for Good? Because there's a lot of things that get said that aren't true and this and that, and I want to make sure that I don't say anything that's not correct. But is there any misconceptions that you've heard out there that you want to make sure that, hey, that's not true, this is how it is, et cetera?
I think it's just NIL in general, right? There's certain category of folks that just don't like it, and that's fine. And then there's certain category of folks that do like it. It's here, and it's not going anywhere.
I was getting ready to say those two words exactly. It's here, people. Get over it.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere. But so we can use this NIL and that flexibility student athletes have to really raise awareness for good causes. And that's truly the Indiana way, right? I mean, we care about doing things the right way. We care about developing IU student athletes into community-minded leaders. And that's why I think Pete thought this out really well, because this is truly the Indiana way. And so, it's here and we're going to provide opportunities to student athletes, but they're going to work and they're going to add value to charities and raise awareness.
So what are you guys, well, I know everyone has their different jobs, but so what is Hoosiers for Good doing now? I know you've got the current class to manage, but now you've got another class you have to plan for. Is that expected to be announced in the fall?
Yeah. In the fall, we thought it was important, there's a fundraising component to this. And we thought it was important to be able to, before we went out and asked people for money, to really show them what we're doing and show the importance of what we're doing. And so we thought it was important to announce the first class to show, the fan base, how important this endeavor is. And it's NIL, but it's also, there's a lot of benefits to doing what we're doing. So now I'm going to be switching my gears to fundraising. And hopefully there's a lot of support for what we're doing. And then we'll turn our attention late summer probably to start getting ready for that second class.
I know it's been a short time, but in the short time that it's been here, what's the biggest impact you've seen from the inside?
I think the biggest impact was just seeing how supportive student athletes were of what we were doing, and also how appreciative our charitable partners were, right? It's free marketing for them. And so the biggest and the most exciting thing that I have encountered yet is one, talking to parents and hearing how they're just so excited for their son or daughter to participate in this opportunity. But then also student athletes, I've had several student athletes tell me, I would do this for free. And while that's a nice sentiment, it's NIL's here and we want to be providing them compensation for all their work. But I just think that goes to show you that the student athletes are really passionate about doing this. And that's been the really exciting part.
Yeah. And well, they're also passionate about being able to, and I don't mean this in a negative way, about being able to make money because it was so archaic before, and I'm kind of laughing at how eagerly and welcoming the schools are. And I'm not talking about Indiana. I'm talking about the schools around the country, how welcoming they are when they are the ones that held this back for all these years. It was not the NCAA because the schools are the NCAA. It's kind of funny
Right.
in a very ironic way.
Yeah, and that's certainly a misconception, right? Everybody, the NCAA is a punching bag where everybody goes to, and the reality is, the NCAA doesn't make the rules. They're not the ones that are doing that. It's all the member schools that are coming together to make those rules, and so I know the student athletes are super excited. I've seen some creative ways that they're engaging in NIL in my previous role, and I just think it's certainly. The time has come. Should have been done a long time ago, especially when a student athlete can walk into their classroom and see one of their peer students engaging in the same, engaging in NIL, but they couldn't because they were a student athlete. And so time has come. It's here. It's not changing. And so hopefully, everybody will embrace that, but in a way that we're going to positively impact a lot of people and in a lot of charitable organizations.
And now, what going through the summer? I asked earlier about next new class. I asked earlier how you select them, but as you're going to and see, so 30, so probably another 15. How do you integrate that in? And I asked part of this too with athletes that aren't here but are coming in the fall. How do you make that integration?
Yeah, that's certainly in part one of the reasons why we said the fall, is to encompass maybe some incoming student athletes who we don't want to get involved in the recruiting space. That's not what this is about. But maybe when they're here, we find out they do have a passion and they do have a voice. They have a platform to raise awareness. And so I think, the fall signing class, again, we'll be focusing on kids who are already enrolled, but those incoming student athletes will have been enrolled at that point.
How do you guys determine the value paid to a specific person versus another person? And obviously, for the people that say this will cause problems on teams, I say that's horse crap, because it's time to get real, people. It's real life. And I said this earlier, whatever job you work, there are people that make more money than you do. It's just life. It's just life. And so I don't understand. No, there should not be any dissension. In fact, you can have people that aren't even good making money. It's about contacts, man. You can go out and make the deals. So I'm not believing in that. But how do you all guys determine who's paid what?
Yeah, NIL really exposes the real world, right? I mean, and that's where student athletes will have to learn that, it's time to grow up. This is the real world. This is how the real world works. In terms of how we select, we have certain metrics, right? We want to make sure that we are falling back on something to defend the amount we're given. And so, some of the metrics would be name recognition. That's an obvious one. Social media influence. The program that they're associated with and that program's social media influence. Will this student athlete help give us national exposure or the charitable partners national exposure? And so we use all that metrics to come up with a reasonable range. And that's really what we fall back on. And I would imagine a lot of people do it that way. Those are some easy metrics to fall back on.
Should I have my opinion on this? And I'm asking, this is almost a rhetorical question. I already know the answer that you're going to respond with, so I'll follow it with another question. Should INL, the amounts paid to athletes, be made public, and why not?
Well,
assuming your answer is going to be no.
I'll throw a little curveball at you, and it's really a non-answer, but I think it's important to keep this in mind. Is for so long, college athletics have been in trouble for treating student athletes differently than their peers, or different, having overly restrictive rules. And so I think the legal system right now would make it very hard to defend why student athletes at colleges have to disclose, or there be public transparency versus when there's not in the professional system or there's not in the high school system. So I think the legal landscape makes that challenging. I see benefits to both ways. And really it's a non-answer, but I do see benefits to both ways. You want public transparency to curb the malfeasance in recruiting, just the ungodly amounts that just aren't reasonable. But then you also don't, because some people are sensitive to locker room dynamics. And so I get both sides. I don't have a persuasive opinion on either. I just think the legal landscape makes it challenging to have some sort of mechanism to do that.
What are you looking to do next? What are you working on when you get off of here?
Fundraising, right? We're providing some awesome opportunities. And we need support to be able to continue to provide those awesome opportunities. And so that's super important. We're certainly providing, I think we have the best model set up out there, but there's certainly models that, are for-profit or partnering student athletes businesses, and even some charitable organizations that can provide bigger opportunities or more opportunities. And for us to be broad-based and provide, really meaningful opportunities, we got to switch gears to fundraising, and hopefully there'll be a lot of support, because this is NIL, but the Hoosier way, and it's a good way.
And I know you're in what your position is, that your viewpoint, how you're dealing with your job, and that's what you're doing. You're not looking at the stuff that the fans are thinking and how they see, and athletes that they like to see come to IU and all that. But the biggest sport is football in college around the country. Not in Indiana, but around the country, it's football, and it's just not at IU. And I'm worried that from someone that covers Indiana, for Indiana, I think the NIL is going to hurt them as from a competition level, because I think that the Michigans and those other, there's going to be a little bit more separation than there was before on the football side of things, and that has nothing to do with the Hoosiers for good. That's just an opinion I have on NIL. I don't know if you think Hoosiers for Good would be able to provide the kind of support to Indiana football that it will to Indiana basketball, because those are two different entities.
Yeah,
apples and oranges, and I'll acknowledge those are apples and oranges that we're comparing here.
Right. NIL is another factor in anybody's recruitment or retention, right? That's just another component that has to be, that kids are thinking through, or young men and women are thinking through. And you're right, from a football standpoint, it probably makes it more challenging at Indiana. But we've got a model that's set up that, if there's a lot of support for what we're doing, we're certainly going to be providing opportunities to everyone, including Indiana football, because we are broad-based. But the obvious component of that is football players, from a social media standpoint, add value, because they can raise awareness for charitable partners. They've got social media followings, they've got name recognition, they've got the program that they're associated with, their social media following, all those factors that we talked about for basketball, football has as well. And so I would envision we're continuing to evaluate and provide opportunities to football student athletes who want to be involved and create value.
Man, I cannot thank you enough, Tyler. I appreciate you so much, and look forward to having you on again to keep up with what's going on, because it's a changing landscape. It seems every day there's something new, or not rule changes every day, but it just is such a new era that we're going into, because not only do you have the NIL, you got this transfer portal at the same time, which with the NIL, they're not signed to a school. They can't be required to attend a school, but obviously these things are done wherever in conjunction with schools. I mean, that's kind of common sense. We know that. What can you do to try to make it, to enhance them to stay, I guess you would say, or could an NIL, not Hoosiers for Good per se, and any NIL do to enhance athletes staying as opposed to going elsewhere?
Yeah, you're certainly right. One of the, we're in Indiana, a state that does not have a state law. So our applicable regulatory authority is the NCAA and their interim policy. And you briefly touched on it, right? We can't provide NIL compensation contingent on initial or continued enrollment. And so I think opportunities, right? I think that is, if you're trying to do things the right way, and not making things contingent, the opportunity itself adds value. And so I think that's where we come in. I'm not going to sit here and say every collective operates the way we're operating, and
because we don't.
but it is important to me because of my background and because of just Indiana Hoosier Nation, right? Like they care about doing things the right way. And so we're going to do that. But at the same time, we're going to provide great opportunities to student athletes at IU that are going to be able to amplify a charitable organization. And if they decide that opportunity is worthwhile for them, to stay at Indiana or leave, whatever's really, truly, it's whatever's best for them. It's their decision, right? We shouldn't be using this to influence a kid's future. And so, we're going to do it the right way. But providing or showing that there's opportunities obviously there's an inherent, impact with that.
And I know that you're in a tough position because you work for Hoosiers for Good. You no longer work for Indiana University. You used to be an employee and you took this job. And this is not an Indiana University company per se, but it is in essence a handshake or so, however people want to describe it. I mean, I know what it is, and I think most people know what it is. But they talk about NCAA cheating, the cheating that goes on. There's still schools that are like Kansas that hopefully NCAA will be dealing with all that stuff. Now, paying players under the table and all that stuff can still happen, which is still illegal. Does this make it harder on the NCAA to chase all this stuff down or easier to track? I'll be honest with you. I don't know now that I think about it, because it's easy to look at this stuff. Was this done right? But you can still have the cheating under the table, I guess. So there's that.
Yeah. You probably are well aware that the NCAA is going through transformational change. I think what makes it hard for the NCAA is certainly the legal environment. That's going to make it very hard for them. I hope pre-NIL, the schools that were involved in the FBI scandal, they should be punished, right? I mean, those were not the rules then, and even then, it'd be a violation in today's world. And so, I hope that those programs involved really get hammered, quite honestly, because they made a mockery of the model, right? And it really devalues or puts everybody who's doing it the right way at a disadvantage. And so, yeah, I hope so. But I get your point. It's very challenging for the NCAA, even with the so-called above board things. The legal environment makes it very challenging, and people who just don't think that they're going to get involved, they're certainly going to try, right? They are trying to save, quite frankly, their organization. I promise you they're going to get involved if their legal environment allows them to.
I'm not sure I understand Tom's question. Who has input to NIL in regards to who and how much? I think he's probably asking what I asked earlier about individuals. How do you select them and how much they're paid? If you did miss that, Tom, you just have to go back and listen to that earlier. And you talk about doing it the right way. Indiana as a school has not been a school that has been involved in cheating scandals and all that. They got in trouble with Kelvin Sampson over phone calls, which was a rule was changed the next year. But what is it that you guys have to make sure that you're doing when you say doing it the right way? What is it that you can't do that you got to make sure that you don't do? I know the obvious things. You can't say, hey, come here and we've got this NIL package for you, blah, blah, blah. I know that that's not legal, quote unquote. But what is it that you guys have to not do, stay away from, besides the obvious?
Yeah, I think there's two broad categories that we have to focus on. One, the NCAA's interim policy, and the making sure student athletes are actually doing something for what they're receiving. Making sure we're not providing opportunities contingent on enrollment. And there's a variety of other little details within there. And then you have the IU policy, right? Making sure we're abiding by IU's policy when we're doing, let's say in-person appearances, that they're not showing up in IU affiliated apparel. And so those are all the little details. But quite frankly, it's a fairly low bar, right? And that's just kind of where it is because of the legal environment. It's a very low bar. So thankfully, there's not, outside of those details that I mentioned, there's not a lot of other things that we really need to be super mindful of.
Absolutely, man. Well, Tyler, I can't thank you enough, brother. It's been a great conversation and very informative, and I look forward to continuing doing this again and continue to learn as the world continues to evolve, the college athletic world of college athletics, at least.
Yeah, there'll certainly be a collective here in the near future, probably at every FBS school, maybe even trickling down to the FCS level. And that's just the new reality. But again, we're gonna, if it's gonna be this way, if NIL is gonna be here, we're gonna do it the right way. But we're also gonna do it in a way that benefits everyone. And so I'm excited. Again, we've only been a little over a month. And I think last Thursday was exciting. And I think we'll continue to provide exciting opportunities.
Here's a good question. That's probably something I can't ask. How are they paid? Weekly, monthly, lump sum? Good question, actually, Scott.
Yeah, they are. The agreement specifies the term of their compensation. A lot of it be on the front end. A lot of it will be on the back end once all terms are completed or deliverables are completed. And then there's some other little details within the agreement.
And since you don't have to or can't use it as an inducement to be in, attend, stay in a certain school, that means I'm eligible for NIL, right?
You are. So am I. So when I played basketball, my NIL value would have probably got me a free pizza one time, and so I wouldn't have really benefited.
That's from it. I don't know if I can get a slice, man.
Well, when I'm talking about free pizza, there was this company right outside campus that gave $3 cheese pizzas on Wednesdays, and so that's my $3 pizza.
I hear you, man. I'll take an NIL if you can squeeze one out anytime, though. Tyler Harris, I cannot thank you enough, man. Look forward to doing this again.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. Had a great time.
You bet. Tyler Harris, Hoosiers for Good, NIL Collective. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda and the WOW Network, right after this.
I actually had a quick question if you're willing to answer it.
Yeah, so you should have jumped in.
Depending on, I don't like interrupting the show. It messes up the aesthetic. Is there any kind of financial literacy that's being taught when you kind of dish out these deals at all, or is it kind of just free reign?
No, it's a good question. So
you're welcome to stay, Tyler. You don't have to leave.
Oh, I don't have anything until 10:30. So you guys, I'm happy.
Gotcha.
But there's kind of two categories. One, IU, right? They're providing those educational sessions that relate to a variety of topics, brand management, financial literacy being one of them. The other thing that we do is we send them, a letter saying, hey, essentially be mindful. There's tax obligations with it can impact your Pell Grant potentially. Just trying to be as transparent for them to ask questions if they need to. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because I can picture myself as a 19-year-old with that much money, and then first thing going to buy a car, and then I'm stuck later. But
yeah, hopefully they're gonna have to grow up quickly. But I think IU, especially when I was there, we did a really good job of making sure student athletes were educated about all the potential ramifications of engaging in NIL, and so I think they're to a point where they know they just need to ask questions, because there's a bunch of details and specific components to every single thing. But as long as they're educated enough to ask, that's the important thing.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for coming on.
Yeah. No, thank you guys. Let me know if you need anything. But really appreciate you guys having me on today.
Gotcha.
Thank you, brother. And anytime you have something to announce, just let me know.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you guys.
See ya.
You bet, Tyler. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you.
Yep. You too.
Back in 40 seconds.
All right. So you can stay in on this.
Yeah. $15 out. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Wednesday, a rainy Wednesday. It's not raining here, I don't think, but lots of other places around. I think it's raining up in Indianapolis. I'm not sure what it's doing down in Evansville yet. If it's hit, may have to look at the radar. But we're expecting some weather today, man. Keegan, I saw Kentucky's Dante Allen to Western Kentucky.
Yeah.
That just surprises me.
I don't think he was a top key player for Kentucky. I mean, he's
obviously he's leaving.
Yeah, he's overshadowed by Shibwe and some of their other guys.
Who's apparently potentially not leaving now.
Yeah, no. I mean, the NIL money for him at Kentucky, I don't know where he is on draft boards, but I mean, I'd say he definitely has a bad taste in his mouth after that exit against St. Peter's, and I feel like he probably thinks that he can do much better for Calipari and squad. So,
and NIL is definitely going to help places like Kentucky who were not hurting before, but they weren't able to keep those guys because those guys could go make more money than the NIL. But now if they catch him in a tweener situation, like Shibwe could have went though. He wasn't a first round pick though, was he?
I'm looking.
Projected.
Right
I think
now.
he was second round projected. And I promise you, I bet you he's getting a hefty NIL deal.
Yeah,
to stay hefty. That's the only way that Kentucky wins the national championship. I mean, I just don't think Calipari is a very good coach.
Yeah, he was mocked to be the number 45 overall selection, so he would have been second round. So I'd say that's money
not too deep into the second round, but it's in the second round and it's not guaranteed.
Yeah, it's mid second round.
And so he'll have a guaranteed deal, NIL deal, staying at Kentucky.
Absolutely.
And again, thankful to Tyler Harris for joining us. And it's tough for him because I know like people there are a lot of different questions they'd like for me to ask, but he is not gonna, he can't, how do I say this? We all know what it is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we all, and he knows that, and they all know that, but they have to maintain that, I work for, I'm with Hoosiers for Good. I'm not with IU. Although they are connected hand in glove. They still need to maintain this appearance of separation. And I get it. Trust me, I get it. So he's in a it's like he's not someone I could ask or would ask. What what's for someone like Malik Renaud? What's the potential of, because that's where they can't. I promise you, in recruiting sessions, it's being discussed.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I forget what it was exactly that I asked him, but he was talking about, I don't know how IU handles that, but it was in regards to recruiting. So his, that way the NIL says, I don't know what they're saying to potential recruits.
I mean, you don't have to say anything. I mean,
you have to say something. You have to tell them the information.
Yeah,
hey, I have there's an NIL package here.
Reading the Zach Osterman article, and they're seeing what kind of money Trace is getting, and they're knowing that they can get that kind of money. So,
Bob, but they're also being. You think they're not being told this in recruiting pitches?
Yeah.
Probably more specific details.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everywhere, not just here. I'm not. This is not a picking on that, but that's life. That's how it is now. It's like Tyler said, he literally took the words out of my mouth. It's here. It's here, people. I don't care if you like it or not.
Yeah.
Got to move on because it's dealing with it. Saw a lot of chatter on here about potential lineups next year. We'll be able to do that once we know who all the pieces are going to be.
Yeah.
Malik Renaud. If he comes in, and I'm pretty confident that Trace and Race are staying.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if Sheboy is not getting drafted high enough, do you think Trace Jackson Davis is going to?
No.
And who has more potential from what we've seen up to this point? I mean, you got to be honest. Sheboy has done more, I would think, or has shown a little more potential, I think.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was the unanimous player of the year. So that
tells you a lot. Yeah. So, and yet the unanimous player of the year is potentially not going to the draft.
Mm-hmm.
That says a lot.
Yeah, but that's also what the NBA values. Like they value Jaden Ivey and Chet Holmgren, those guys you have to be able to make the 3-point shot, kind of, unless you're going to show up and be a Giannis or just a massive.
Well, that's further secures my point because unfortunately, Trace Jackson Davis can't make a 10-foot shot.
No. So.
Well, it hasn't shown that capability yet, I should say.
Yeah. The same with Kofi Coburn. I mean, you've seen what he's done to people. And he's mid-second round, maybe late first round, best case scenario.
Leon's asking, so states with their own laws have advantages or different rules for NIL? I think that there are some states that have put rules in place. I don't know who they are and what those rules are. We'll have to dig into that. Yeah, I don't know that, and I'd have to find out exactly what they are to decide whether or not it's an advantage or a disadvantage. I doubt that it's either, because you can't limit amounts. It's a limit. It's a right to work.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this whole thing is about. So I don't know how those laws would make it, but I would have to look at it. I mean, there could be something screwy on there. But yeah, I don't think so. I think it's just to try to keep people from doing unscrupulous things.
It looks like Indiana is one of the few schools that doesn't have laws on this list. It looks close to 30, or not schools, states.
But what do the laws say?
That's what I'm getting into. But it looks like there's about 30 to 35 states on here that have passed something.
And that cracks me up, because when it comes to something that's important to people, really important, like college athletics, Look how fast a law gets passed.
Mm-hmm.
These laws did not exist 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago. Now 30 states have laws. Now, if this was for something important to life, it would take 10 years to get that law passed. Whoa, for college sports, oh hell, we got to get that done.
Yeah.
Isn't that ridiculous? That's a ridiculous look at ourselves as a society. I just thought I'd say that.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff it's about disclosing the contract, the NIL contract, to designated officials. It's not taking away scholarships based on an NIL contract, because that's not technically compensation.
It's basically what's the word I'm looking for? Just clean up stuff. Just dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Making sure it basically sounds like they're just making sure they don't break NCAA rules, because those are the same things. You have to, all that stuff. So yeah, it's just basically keeping them in line.
And with those 35 schools that have passed it, there are 9 that have proposed bills in place, and Indiana is also not one of those. So they are really trying their best to not get NIL laws passed at the state level.
Say that again.
Of the 35 schools that have passed a law, there are 9 more that have a law proposed, and Indiana is not. So they could possibly be one of the last 4 to 5 states to get in on passing it at the state level. Well,
Indiana is usually one of the last states to pass something about anything.
Yeah.
This is probably a little more telling because the NCAA is in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
So if Indiana wanted a law or thought it should have a law, or if the NCAA thought it should have a law, that would probably be going down.
Yeah. And
not important.
You know, you have to wonder what people with these consortiums, how many connections do they have at the state house? And how much pull do they have in terms of passing laws and lobbying for certain laws? Because we know how important basketball is in Indiana.
Yeah, I don't know that it's going to matter. I don't think that they need a law. I think that's their point. It's like, we don't need a law. We have the rules, and you have to follow the rules. And the rules, if the rules and the law are the same thing, the law is pointless.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my whole point. Of all these lawmakers got off their butts and hurried to get this law passed. Why don't you do that with important stuff?
Yeah,
in life. This was not one of them. It was not needed. It was not even needed.
The rules are created by the specific school, correct?
No, the NCAA has the umbrella of rules, which the schools put in place. But you have to, X, Y, and Z. Like it can't be an inducement to attend a specific school. It can't be an inducement to stay at a specific school. Those types of things.
Yeah,
it's just cleanup stuff. So the laws are not even necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this: the law is there though, because the NCAA is not law, and when you break the rules, it's not like committing a crime.
Yeah,
they don't have that kind of ability. Now, when there's a law involved, though, now that's different. You break a law, well, now you got to face the consequences. So maybe that creates a little bit different.
Yeah.
Interesting. It will be interesting to see.
Very interesting.
We missed a break. Should we take it or skip it?
No, we're good.
Yeah, I don't know. Indiana football. I don't know what NIL is going to do to Indiana football. A lot of people would say, well, it can't hurt it any worse than it is.
You have to win. That's going to be the main thing.
Yeah, and how
Another
hard
day.
is that going to be, though, going forward at a school that has zero football popularity almost?
Mhm.
And after last year, they sailed that ship. It was up there, man, and it would be flying. If they had the season last year that they were expected to have, coming into this season would be even bigger than last year, probably.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it is. I don't know if it's finally flatlined. At least I would not. I'd say it's not going down. It's flatlined. Everyone's waiting to see. There's nothing. There's no information. We haven't been able to go to practice. You know, you don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Barzlak, Tuttle. There's just there's some changes that have been made. I know personnel wise. Coaching. Oh my God. You got new coordinators on both sides.
Yeah. You have
Tom
more
Allen
new
jumping
coaches
back
than not.
Tom Allen back on defense. There's just a whole bunch. I know we were going to talk about this weekend. You were up in Indianapolis as well, up at Finch, the field house. Who all did you get to see play this weekend? You saw a lot of different guys as well.
I saw, I think it was 6 or 7 IU targets. I got to see Indiana Elite, which has Florida Dunga, Cooper Cook, and Raleigh Burgess. Raleigh Burgess was graceful enough to talk to me after his game, not 2 minutes after the final whistle blew, and he was still sweating and breathing heavy. He's been in contact with Brian Walsh a lot, so it looks like he's a target. He's a big forward, can shoot the three, and he's extremely aggressive in the post. Cooper Cook should be a name people have been familiar with. He came on an unofficial visit earlier in the year. He's a knockdown shooter, not as aggressive kind of down low as Raleigh Burgess is, but he can distribute the ball very, very well. He made a lot of good passes. And then Florida Badunga, one of the more impressive performances I've ever seen. I think he scored about 53 points over 2 games, and he probably left Finch Creek Fieldhouse with multiple offers that he didn't have before. So just remember that name. Floyd Badunga is going to be a household name here, and he'll probably be within the top 30 to 20 players in the class of 2024. I think he's from Niger. I don't want to assume that. I think that's where he's only been playing basketball for 3 years. It's a lot of raw talent. You can still see his teammates kind of helping him with how to play the game, just specific ways, but he's a physical force. Of course, got to see Gabe Cupps and Paul McNeil. So it was a lot of fun. A lot of D1 coaches there too. Yeah,
a ton. There were just tons. I saw lots of people from the Big Ten. Fran McCaffrey was there. Greg Gard was there. Minnesota was there.
Travis Steele. Michael
I didn't
Lewis.
see him. Georgetown. I missed Michael. He was there. I didn't get to see him, but there was just tons. Oh, Mike Bray walking around looking like everyday Joe. I mean, had his sweat jacket off, thrown over his shoulder, just wearing an untucked sweatshirt, unshaven.
Yeah,
just look like everyday Joe, everyday Mike, state. I guess I should say. It is. He's just like, I'm cool, man. I'm up here in the north side. No, there's no pressure on me.
Yeah.
He's got
it. Ross points out, which I heard from Chad Brendel at 3SSB in Indy, that he's going to follow. I can't remember what the coach's name is, but I think was an assistant at Bradley, and it looks like he's going to follow that coach wherever he gets a job. So apparently that's going to be involved in the recruiting where he goes. But
very smart of that coach.
Yeah. And then another one I saw that Indiana fans should follow is Caleb Wilson, a 2025 big forward, can spot up, shoot. I think he's 6'5", going into his sophomore year of high school out of Georgia. So I think Woodson will be all over him. So
Indiana's going to have a lot of more talent to choose from. Last year's issues were mainly because of lack of talent.
Yeah.
Enough talent. Trace Jackson Davis cannot win games by himself.
Yeah.
And you just got to have production from the wings. That's what this team is missing.
We got to wrap up.
Looking forward to it, man. Looking forward to doing it again tomorrow. Keegan will be back sitting in for John, the producer, tomorrow. Another great lineup. Looking forward to it as well. And hopefully you guys stay out of the rain today, wherever you are. Appreciate you for joining us as always. Make sure you support all of our sponsors. We appreciate them all. Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer, and the Wild Club. Go to your app store and you can easily just load that baby up. Wild Club members earn exclusive discounts, dining dollars to spend, and more sent directly to your mobile phone. The Wild Club is one of our great sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. Tons of restaurants in and around Bloomington. So when you come here, even if you don't, you can order the steaks from BB's. Incredible. I can't wait. We're almost – I've got to get a grill, man. Maybe I'll do that today. So I got to go out and get a grill. You guys go out and have fun. Appreciate everybody on the program today. Bob Kravitz, Kyle Nedrip, Tyler Harris from Hoosiers for Good, of course, as well, and Keegan Nickerson sitting in at the producer's chair. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we've got no reason to be here. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the